Hello, my fellow archaeologists, and welcome to my tour of the Nekromanteion, also known as the Oracle of the Dead. This site was dedicated to Hades, the god or ruler of the underworld. According to the Greek Ministry of Culture and Sports in Greece, the main sanctuary building was erected in the late or early 3rd century, also known as the Classical period. It is located on a small hill on the outskirts of Mesopotamia village, directly overlooking the Acheron River. The ruin sits just a short walk, about 2 kilometers or just over a mile, from the river and its banks. Unlike many of the Olympian gods, Hades had fewer temples and sites dedicated to him, as ancient Greeks feared him and tried to avoid invoking his name, due to his association with death and the underworld. Perhaps one of the closest sites associated with Hades is the Necromanteion of Acheron, where pilgrims believed they could speak with the deceased. So, who was Hades? As previously mentioned, he was the god of the underworld. The myth of Hades goes something like this: he was the eldest son of the titans Cronus and Rhea. If this sounds familiar, that's because Hades, Zeus, and Poseidon are brothers. Cronus was afraid that one day his children would overthrow him. To prevent this, he ate them all with the exception of Zeus, who was hidden away by his mother Rhea, and later came to free his brother. Together, they waged war against the Titans. This war was known as the Titanmancy, and it lasted 10 years. After defeating the Titans, Hades, Zeus, and Poseidon decided they would divide the universe and draw their roles. As fate would have it, Hades became Lord of the Dead. Fun fact: Hades is also known as Pluton, the god of hidden wealth, associating him with minerals and precious metals like bronze, copper, silver, and gold, as well as fertile soil. Let's move to our first point of interest, the Acheron River, also known as the River of Woes. In Greek mythology, the River of Woes was considered one of the 5 rivers of Hades and one of the main entry points to the underworld. Each river was associated with a specific aspect of death and the afterlife. Ancient Greeks believed that the rivers served as a transition between the mortal world and the underworld. Through the lens of the humanist, the rivers of Hades provide important insight when studying ancient Greek religion, their perception of death, morality, and the journey of the soul in the afterlife. Okay, we're back at the site of the Necromanteion. Here lies the southern hallway of the main sanctuary. This hallway is shorter and not as wide as the northern and eastern ones, but its walls are equally thick and constructed with care. In addition, it is winding in a minder, which is why it's also known as the labyrinth. This structuring invokes the sense of wandering in the dark hallways of Hades. The labyrinth had 3 arched iron doors, which symbolized the doors to the underworld. Some of the findings from this area include iron rivets from the iron gates, a clay lamp, and various shreds from basins, which are believed to be broken by the pilgrims after having made their offerings to the gods of the underworld. We've now reached the main sanctuary. This would have been the first room visitors would have walked into, and this is the place where the ritual of speaking with the dead would have taken place. Archaeological evidence suggests that this area would have been under a second floor, meaning the main sanctuary would have been darker. The second floor was likely destroyed when the site was burnt down during the Roman conquest. The main sanctuary structure features thick polygonal masonry walls, an enclosed layout, and multiple interconnected rooms. Together, the design would have made the sanctuary feel dark, isolated, and mysterious, further reinforcing the belief that you were entering a space between the mortal world and the underworld. The internal division of the space and the elaborate construction techniques suggest a high understanding of engineering and architectural planning. Through the perspective of an artist, we can appreciate the way in which the architects of the Necromanteion used creativity to build an immersive, mysterious, and religious experience to reflect the ancient Greeks' beliefs regarding death and the underworld. We're now in the underground crypt. This was considered the entrance to the underworld. It's located directly below the main sanctuary, supported by 15 arc stones. Some archaeologists believe the chamber dates to the Hellenistic period and may have replaced an earlier sacred cave associated with Hades and Persephone. Excavations here recovered pottery fragments, an intact vase, animal bones, and the skeleton of a sacrificed animal, suggesting this space was used for ritual offerings. According to Grokpedia, the site's rituals involved elaborate purification processes, including a month-long stay for pilgrims, strict diets avoiding certain foods, ritual baths, and offerings of honey, milk, water, and animal blood to invoke and appease the dead, often conducted in the darkened chambers to include visions or communication with spirits. Some scholars argue that the site may have been turned into a fortified Hellenistic agricultural tower, and that the crypt was simply a storage room. The site reminds us that archaeological evidence often requires interpretation, and it opens the debate on how these spaces truly functioned. Here we can see the Church of St. John the Baptist, a church built on the ruins of the Necromanteion of Acheron, probably around the 16th century. It operated until 1958, when excavations began. It was surrounded by a precinct that included the Catholicon and the cells which were later demolished. The style of the Catholicon is of the simple single-room timber roof church. Inside, it is decorated with fragmented and partially preserved wall paintings from 1740.